Welcome to KeepItReal Studios, the only channel on YouTube that keeps it real.
When it comes down to UFC, boxing, or just mixed martial arts as a whole, a very important and necessary tool that a fighter must have at all times are gloves. Doesn't matter if it's actual fighting or practice, you definitely need to have gloves. Gloves are there not only to protect your hands, but also to protect the fighters too as well. I believe that gloves are such an essential tool for every fighter. Earlier this year, the UFC decided to get rid of the old gloves and exchange them with brand new ones. So just going into further detail, I'm not really necessarily talking about the quality of the gloves in itself, because I myself have never tried either the new gloves or the old gloves, so I can't really go into too much detail to say if the new gloves are better than the old ones or if the old ones are better than the new one. But in terms of just what I've seen and just how it looks as a whole, I'm not really the biggest fan of it. Before I start focusing a little bit too much on just the negatives of this new UFC gloves, I do believe there are a lot of positives and a lot of good things that came out of these gloves. Starting off, the prevention of eye pokes. Obviously, we do know that eye pokes still occur in the UFC even though with the new gloves, but that's just how the fight game is. You know, if you're going to have gloves like that, eventually there's going to be a fighter that just manages to still poke on other fighters in the eyes. But even the fact that they went out of their way to try to prevent eye pokes while designing the new gloves, I thought that was very interesting, and I thought that was a good aspect to add for the UFC. Another aspect that I liked about the new gloves is the design of the glove. It's meant for you to be able to clench your fists. You know, when you have it put on, the fighter's hands are automatically facing down. So it's kind of easier for the fighters to kind of clench your fist. So I thought that could be really beneficial. And it also, even just in terms of grappling, you know, that could also help you kind of grab your opponent a lot easier. So I do like that idea and concept that they did and implemented into those new gloves. Now, this is definitely my favorite aspect of the new gloves. I like how they made different types of gloves for different types of people. You know, for the Dana White's #1 Contender series, then you also have for the Ultimate Fighting, you know, you also have for just the regular fighters and the championship fighters. I really like that aspect that they created different designs or just different gloves for just different aspects of people in the UFC. I like how realistically almost every fighter that's starting from the ground up into the main event title shot, they kind of have an evolution of different gloves that they have to wear and use. I really like that aspect, and I think it's very cool. It also kind of gives a fighter motivation. It's like, oh, I need to work up to the next level, to the next glove. And you know, not everybody gets the chance to wear the gold gloves, you know. Not everyone gets the chance to wear the UFC gloves. You know, some people only make it to the Contender series. I really like that aspect of the glove, just the evolution of it. I think that was very creative, and just the different colors were quite interesting to me too as well. Now I'm going to be focusing on some of the negative aspects of just these gloves that the UFC decided to implement. So starting off, the coloring, but not just in terms of all of the gloves, because I do like the red and blue gloves that they did add. I thought that was very unique, but I'm talking about the black and gold gloves, man. Starting off with the black one, it's not that big of a difference, but I did notice it a little bit. It is kind of a lighter black or maybe grayish kind of color. I feel like just stick to the old all black. I believe that looks a lot better. And in terms of the gold one is not it, man. I do like the idea, don't get me wrong. I think the concept is actually absolutely smart, and I do like that concept. You know, the championship fight, give them gold gloves. I love that idea, and if you look very closely into the gloves, you can definitely see a little octagons in them, and I thought that was such a nice, amazing detail that they decided to add on. You know, the gold gloves doesn't look good on every single champion that has worn it, or even every challenger for the championship. I feel like it only looks well if you're more of like a darker or tan kind of skin tone. You know, not all fighters look good in it. I think it would be better if it was all black gloves and like maybe the UFC logo and their tape was gold. I think that would have been a lot more better. Or if you're just going to give full-on gold gloves, only give it to the champion. You know, I feel like that's a lot better. You know how there's the black and gold shorts befitting the champion? It should be like the black and gold shorts with the gold gloves befitting the champion. I feel like that would be a lot better instead of giving the challenger two as well. I feel like just make it only special to the champion in a way. So instead of just having two people that don't look good in all gold gloves, have only one person. And I feel like when they have the belt around them and they have the gold gloves, then it doesn't look as bad too as well. In overall honesty, those are just some of my thoughts and opinions on just the new UFC gloves. And in making of this video, I actually stopped and realized I do have a lot more pros than cons about these new gloves. So maybe I do like these gloves better than I do realize. So I think I was a little bit too harsh earlier in the beginning saying I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But I feel like anytime I'm just watching UFC and I just see the big gold gloves come on screen, you know, and it doesn't look too appealing, it just kind of irritates me a little bit. But I do like the concept, like I was saying overall. It's still such a unique idea, and I'm still very glad that UFC is just going out of their way just to create a new experience for us fight fans. I do like the idea. Ever since UFC 300, they have been trying to change things up. You know, they've tried to have the UFC in the sphere. I just like what Dana White's doing with the UFC, you know, instead of just making it the same thing every time, he is trying to add new elements and new different things to the fight game. So I really love that aspect. But overall, that's just some of my thoughts and opinions just on the UFC gloves. Please just comment down below how you feel about these UFC gloves. Are you a fan of the new ones? Do you like the concept? Or do you wish we could go back to the old gloves? That'll be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to keep it real.